The quakes are a sign that underground volcanic chambers are filling with molten rock and expanding to stretch and deform the land up above. Yellowstone Park usually experiences an average of 12 tiny earthquake tremors every day. Most are too weak to be felt by tourists and register only on the most sensitive seismometers. But in early 2009, more than 4 times as many quakes started striking every day. Over one 10-day period, there were more than 500 quakes, some of them up to magnitude 3.9. Powerful enough to frighten the visitors and put the scientists on alert. There's a second indicator of increasing volcanic activity. If more molten rock does inflate the underground chamber, the ground above will rise. And that too seems to be happening right now. Unusual evidence to prove it comes from an unlikely source, the waters of Yellowstone Lake. Around 100 years ago, small steamships carried tourists on sightseeing trips across the lake. But one of the ships caught fire and sank forever below the surface of the lake. But now, Yellowstone's astonishing geological forces have resurrected the ship's remains from their watery grave.
Here we have a boat which burnt down to water level. And so this tells us something about the deformation of Yellowstone. And basically what's happened is that the floor of the lake has risen, bringing the boat out of water.
The reappearance of the wreck shows that land under and around the lake is rising because of the expansion of the magma chamber. Even more alarmingly, the rate at which it's rising seems to be increasing. In geological terms, a huge area of Yellowstone Park is positively soaring up into the air faster than it's ever done before. The biggest uplift of all has been recorded just a few miles from the shore of the lake. There's a GPS system here, a much more sophisticated version of the one in your car. It measures not only its surface position, but also its exact altitude to within fractions of an inch.
There's a small radio antenna about the size of your thumb that sits on top of this steel rod. And it's anchored in about 3 or 4 feet. So if the ground moves up and down, the antenna moves up and down.
The GPS and the land on which it's anchored are moving upwards.
We're above the magma chamber, and beginning in late 2006, this whole area of ground started to rise at the order of 2 to 3 inches per year. And as of today, this whole system right here has risen about that much, and it's still moving today. And so we're measuring and keeping close track of the deformation of the uplift that we're seeing at this station.
But does the uplift mean that Yellowstone's supervolcano is threatening to erupt once again?
The question of what lies in Yellowstone's geologic future is fascinating. And I and all of my colleagues would love to know the answer to that question.
The scientists keep a careful watch on the volcano's activity.
The idea of science is to understand the process. And so we have a responsibility to see how this system is deforming and how it's working. And we have to be aware there is still a possibility of volcanic eruptions or earthquakes. After all, that's what made this system. And there's no reason to think that volcanism has stopped.
The Yellowstone investigation has shown that the park's sleeping supervolcano is still alive and dangerous. Old Faithful's underground plumbing reveals volcanic heat. Obsidian glass tells of a massive eruption. Seismographs record thousands of earthquakes. while the earthquake waves reveal terrifying underground chambers, and the reappearance of a sunken boat shows that the land is rising. And yet, the ultimate Yellowstone geological question remains to be answered. When will the supervolcano erupt once again?
We know there's enough magma left, we know there's enough heat, we know that there will be future eruptions in Yellowstone, but we don't know if there will ever be another catastrophic eruption.
So the investigation is left with a deadly serious warning. On the timescale that geologists work to, a coming super eruption in Yellowstone may well be right around the corner. That corner could be 10,000 or 100,000 years in the future, or it could be tomorrow. A new and devastating chapter in the ever-changing story of how the Earth was made.